Let's be honest, horror games have been on a slippery slope for almost 2 decades now. The mid-2000s to early 2010s saw a noticeable shift towards action-oriented gameplay in many horror titles. Series that once thrived on tension, scarcity, and creeping dread suddenly decided that explosions, hordes, and QTEs were scarier than, quiet corridors and looming threats. They descended back into a heavier version of horror, one more focused on first-person shooter mechanics and area control, a style I truly despise, honestly. What used to be survival horror became action spectacle, and while some of those games are fun in their own right, the soul of horror was stripped away. It set the stage for titles like Resident Evil 5 and 6, where fear was secondary to firepower, and tension was sacrificed for flashy combat sequences. Welcome to the Snake Pit, where we're full of bile and venom. I'm your host, Snake Damon, and today we're diving into Resident Evil 5, a game that, on paper, had every tool to craft a thrilling horror experience, but ended up exemplifying exactly what went wrong with the franchise's evolution. So set 5 years after Resident Evil 4, Chris Redfield, now a seasoned BSAA agent, is dispatched to Kijuju, West Africa, alongside his partner Shiva Alomar. They're chasing Ricardo Irving, a bioterrorist who's planning to sell a BOW or bioorganic weapon on the black market. The setup is classic, really. Biological threats, infection spreading among locals, mysterious labs, and of course, the looming shadow of Wesker. There's potential here for a story filled with creeping dread, suspense, and, a bit of moral tension. Instead, what we get is a game that pushes spectacle over fear. You move through oil fields, marshes, and underground labs, fighting endless waves of Magini infected with the Las Plagas parasite. Bosses mutate grotesquely and unimaginably. Trolls, octopus beasts, and Ouroboros monstrosities. But honestly, the sheer abundance of firepower in your arsenal just removes the sense of real danger. This is the core problem with Resident Evil 5. From the start, the game seems designed for co-op play, which is, fun, but it fundamentally undermines the solo horror experience. Sheva's AI partner is inconsistent at best. She can't choose weapons effectively, fails to support you strategically, and is often a liability in firefights unless handed the so-called perfect setup. Give her a sniper rifle and she's competent, in a vacuum, but in practice it just breaks the tension rather than adding to it. The weapons system itself doesn't help. Unlimited options, generous ammo drops, and loads of explosives turn every encounter into a shootout rather than a survival scenario. The horror of scarcity, the anxiety of conserving bullets, and the tension of limited space, all of that is, gone. By focusing so heavily on action, the game loses the defining intensity of what made Resident Evil great. And then there's the story itself, which suffers from the same problems. The African setting, the infected villagers, the Las Plaga victim. It's a narrative ripe for moral ambiguity and creeping unease, but honestly, modern sensibilities, some people seem incapable of handling it with nuance, and that's one of the biggest issues. The people infected are little more than obstacles, stripped of identity, reduced to a parasite and a threat, their humanity erased. This isn't horror, it's a sanitized, depersonalized version of a biological nightmare. If Capcom were to modernize this element to appease sensibilities, which, let's face it, will probably happen, they'd need to rewrite nearly the entire narrative anyway, which, presents an opportunity to return to the franchise's roots. Imagine, just for a moment, A complete rewrite that actually respects classic survival horror, but still keeps those co-op dynamics alive, only with two divergent paths which intersect. Picture two parallel storylines, one for Chris, one for Sheva, intersecting strategically at key moments. The thing is, they can't really move forward without each other, so it forces coordination, trust, and, a fair bit of tension. Think of it, honestly, a bit like the Arkham games, where Nightwing pops up in combat scenarios and totally changes the dynamics. Or maybe, the intersecting campaigns you get in Resident Evil 6, but scaled back for survival horror, not just action spectacle. Every single interaction could be loaded with risk, like if one character gets overwhelmed, both of them end up paying the price. Ammo scarcity, environmental hazards, and smart decision-making would all be absolutely central. The horror isn't just the monsters. It's the constant need to navigate a world that punishes mistakes, where you can't just barrel through with a partner holding your hand. Additionally, trimming back the spectacle and focusing on smaller, terrifying encounters could restore the tension. Instead of endless Magini hordes, introduce fewer, smarter enemies with unpredictable behavior. Boss fights could retain their grotesque flair, but integrate environmental puzzles, escape sequences, and vulnerability windows to evoke classic RE fear. The African setting can remain, but the locals' humanity should be acknowledged, adding, moral weight to the infections and making players question the cost of their firefights. The Plaga victims could have backstories, audio logs, or environmental storytelling that reminds players they aren't just cannon fodder, their lives irreversibly changed, creating stakes that feel real. And let's not forget Jill, her capsule, the brainwashing, the ambiguity around Wesker. These are powerful narrative tools that were, honestly, undercut by the game's focus on firefights. A survival horror rewrite could let Jill act more strategically as an ally or an obstacle, her presence adding tension instead of spectacle. Every encounter with her or Wesker should be unpredictable, emotionally charged, and, genuinely horrifying. Not just another boss fight on a conveyor belt. Resident Evil 5 is, pretty much emblematic of the franchise's ongoing struggle. It's a fun, thrilling action game, but let's be honest, it's not a true survival horror experience. The AI, partner issues, weapon abundance, multiplayer design, and that constant emphasis on spectacle, they all rob the game of tension, fear, and the moral weight of its story. A modern rewrite could actually fix this by returning to Scarcity, dual campaigns with interdependent mechanics, smarter enemies, and a more humanized narrative, all while keeping the series' action flourishes in service of horror, rather than just, replacing it. Until then, games like RE5 remain fun but flawed examples of what happens when action overtakes terror. Thanks for dropping by the Snake Pit, where we thrive on untapped potential and lost opportunities. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell, like the video, and leave your opinions in the comments, where naturally I won't read them. Until next time, stay venomous.